You ever notice how you can be extremely motivated on Sunday night? You journal, you set goals, you promise yourself, this time it's different. And then by Wednesday, you're back to scrolling, back to procrastinating, back to telling yourself, I guess I'm just not disciplined. Or maybe it's not productivity. Maybe it's relationships. You keep saying you'll stop texting that person who clearly isn't good for you. You know better. You've watched the red flags unfold in real time. And yet, you do it again. Or maybe you sabotage opportunities. You don't apply for the job. You don't post the video. You don't speak up in the meeting. Not because you can't, but because something inside you whispers, that's not who you are. And here's the thing. Most people think this is a willpower problem. It's not. It's an identity problem. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about how the human mind sabotages itself. If you're someone who keeps overthinking, procrastinating, or repeating the same emotional patterns, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today we're talking about something most self-help advice completely ignores. Your behavior doesn't follow your goals. It follows your self-image. And if your self-image is fragile, inconsistent, or based on outdated stories about who you are, you will keep repeating the same cycles, no matter how motivated you feel. Let me challenge something right away. Most people believe, if I change my habits, I'll change my life. Look, that sounds logical, but research in behavioral psychology suggests something deeper. Studies on self-concept show that people are highly motivated to behave in ways that are consistent with how they see themselves. This is sometimes referred to as self-consistency theory. In one classic line of research, people who were labeled as helpful were significantly more likely to donate later compared to those who were simply asked to help. Why? Because the label altered their self-perception. Here's what most people don't realize. Your brain is constantly trying to maintain a coherent identity. If you believe you're bad at discipline, your brain will unconsciously filter evidence to support that belief. If you see yourself as not confident, you'll notice every awkward moment and ignore every successful interaction. This connects to something called confirmation bias, the tendency to search for and interpret information in a way that confirms pre-existing beliefs. And your strongest pre-existing belief, who you think you are. Let's talk about motivation. Motivation spikes when emotion spikes. But your self-image, that's stable. It's stored in long-term memory. It's reinforced over years. It's tied to childhood experiences, social feedback, and repeated internal dialogue. So when you try to act outside of your identity, say, waking up at 5 a.m. when you see yourself as lazy, your brain experiences cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is psychological discomfort caused by holding inconsistent beliefs or behaviors. Here's where it gets really interesting. Most people think dissonance pushes them to change upward. Sometimes it does, but often, it pushes them back down to identity consistency. You skip the gym once. Instead of thinking, I missed a workout, you think, see, this is why I never stick to things. That thought reinforces the identity, and the identity reinforces the behavior. It's a loop. Let's zoom out. Your brain isn't designed to make you successful. It's designed to keep you safe. Safety means predictability. Predictability means familiarity. And familiarity includes your current self-image, even if that self-image is limiting. If you've always seen yourself as the quiet one, suddenly speaking up feels dangerous. If you've always been the responsible one, taking creative risks feels irresponsible. Your nervous system doesn't evaluate whether a new identity is better. It evaluates whether it's familiar. This is why identity shifts feel uncomfortable. It's not laziness, it's threat detection. Neuroscience research shows that social rejection activates similar brain regions as physical pain. So when you risk behaving differently, more confident, more ambitious, your brain subconsciously calculates social risk. What if they judge me? What if I fail publicly? What if I lose belonging? So it nudges you back into your old self. Safe, predictable, small. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I genuinely want to change. Why would I hold myself back? Because your current identity gives you emotional rewards. Let me explain. If you see yourself as bad at math, you get an excuse. If you see yourself as unlucky in love, you get a story. If you see yourself as not naturally disciplined, you get relief from pressure. Identity protects you from expectations, and sometimes that protection feels safer than growth. I once worked with someone who constantly said, "I'm just not a confident person." But every time she avoided speaking up, she avoided potential embarrassment. Her self-image wasn't just limiting, it was shielding her from short-term discomfort. Here's what most people don't realize. Your identity isn't just a description. It's a coping mechanism. Now let's get practical. How do you actually shift identity? Not temporarily, but deeply. Step 1. Audit the stories you repeat. This is uncomfortable, but necessary. Start noticing your repeated internal phrases. I'm just not disciplined. I always mess things up. I'm not good in social situations. These aren't facts. They're rehearsed narratives. Research on neuroplasticity shows that repeated thought patterns strengthen neural pathways. The more you repeat a story, the more automatic it becomes. So first, you identify the script, because you can't rewrite a script you don't see. Step 2. Create identity-based micro-evidence. Here's the mistake people make. They try to leap into a massive new identity. I'm going to become a completely different person. Too threatening. Instead, you gather micro-evidence. If you want to become disciplined, don't aim for a 2-hour workout. Do 5 minutes and then say, I'm someone who keeps promises to myself. Small action, new label. Behavioral research shows that even minor commitments increase self-perception shifts. When you act in a way that contradicts your old identity, your brain updates. Slowly, but reliably. Step 3. Separate behavior from identity. This is huge. Stop saying, I am lazy. Start saying, I acted lazily in that moment. This creates psychological flexibility. Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset shows that people who see traits as changeable persist longer and recover faster from failure. When identity is rigid, failure becomes proof. When identity is flexible, failure becomes feedback. Step 4. Design your environment to match the new identity. Look, willpower is fragile. Environment is powerful. If you want to become a focused person, but your phone is always within reach, you're fighting biology. Change the cues. Put the phone in another room. Lay out workout clothes. Surround yourself with people who embody the identity you want. Behavioral economists have shown that small environmental changes dramatically shift behavior, often more than motivation ever could, because environment reduces friction, and reduced friction increases repetition, and repetition builds identity. Let me simplify this. Unbreakable self-image equals repeated aligned actions plus emotional reinforcement plus environmental support. Over time, something subtle happens. You stop trying to act confident. You just are. You stop forcing discipline. It becomes standard. This is where it gets really interesting. Once your identity shifts, willpower demand drops because you're no longer fighting yourself. Most people chase outcomes, money, fitness, status, love, but outcomes are unstable. Identity is stable. When you become the type of person who trains, income follows skill. When you become the type of person who communicates honestly, relationships improve. When you become the type of person who finishes what they start, opportunities multiply. Focus on becoming, not achieving. Look, you are not stuck because you lack talent. You are not stuck because you lack intelligence. You are stuck because you're loyal to an outdated version of yourself, and loyalty feels honorable. But sometimes, growth requires betrayal. Betraying the old story. Betraying the comfortable label. Betraying the identity that kept you safe, but small. Here's what most people don't realize. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. So if you want an unbreakable life, Build an unbreakable self-image. Start small. Gather evidence. Speak differently about yourself. Design your environment. And let repetition do what motivation never could. If this made you think differently about yourself, hit the subscribe button. And in the comments, tell me, what's one identity you're ready to outgrow? I'll see you in the next one.